Hello everyone, Underdog Chris here, back to bring you all another video. This time I'll be taking a look at Ash Ketchum from the Pokemon anime once again. During the controversial Sun and Moon era, I'll be going over why I resonate with this generation of Ash's adventure the most, and also try to debunk some myths, misconceptions, and bad narratives that are still being spread about him to this very day. So with that being said, I'll get us started. I remembered when Sun and Moon Ash's design first got leaked towards the tail end of the XY anime's run, and how the fandom basically ripped it apart. I know that most if not everyone disliked his design at first, and I will admit, while I didn't vehemently hate the design much like everyone else, I also wasn't in love with it. I was a guy who still preferred the old art style, at least back then, so it did take a little time for me to adjust at looking at this version of Ash. I was also a little skeptical of him as a character, so only time would tell if I would end up enjoying the series or not. But honestly, I feel like the more I watched of Sun and Moon, the more interested I became in Ash's character during it. You'd be surprised, but a lot of people believed, and still do believe to this very day, the misconception that Ash was reset in Sun and Moon merely because of the art style change, and the fact that he was going to school when that's actually not the case at all. If anything, I would say that his experiences in the Pokemon school and in the Alola region elevated his battling prowess even more, but I'll touch more on that later. A lot of people like to downplay the Alola region and that section of the anime as a whole because it doesn't look as gritty or cool or flashy as the XYZ anime. That's part of why I don't really resonate with the XY version of Ash nowadays, but I'm not the only one that feels that way. In the more recent years, I've seen people take off the rose-tinted glasses and realize that XY Ash wasn't this flawless version of the character, and that there are in fact a few aspects that the writers got wrong in an attempt to make him look as cool or edgy as possible. It just feels really forced to me. That's fine for those that like it, but it just doesn't really do it for me anymore. When Ash was in the Alola region, it was practically his second home, as he bonded with the people and the Pokemon of it so much so that it felt like he had a second family. Unlike his previous journeys, he took a step back and slowly took in the region's culture and surroundings. He really fits in with the region's peaceful vibes and relaxing yet adventurous atmosphere. And this was shown here with this scene from the Treasure Island episode in Sun and Moon, around the 21st episode of the first season to be exact, which I would say is an underrated gem. It exemplifies who Ash is by this point and how this region also takes him one step closer to becoming a Pokemon master, and gives us a special moment between him and his longtime partner Pikachu as he talks about how it's been a while since they were last able to relax in this manner. He ends up befriending the Pokemon of the island, as shown here with the Alolan Executor, the Comfey, and the little Wimpod that was stuck between the rocks that he ended up saving. Ash even had a chance encounter with Tapu Lele as well. He healed his arms after seeing how much Ash was willing to go through in order to save that Wimpod and get it to reunite with its group. There's various other examples of Ash doing similar things throughout the Sun and Moon anime, and I feel like it's a nice touch to his character that we haven't really seen as often in some of the other shows. Though, I want to circle back on the subject of battling. As I've said before, contrary to popular belief, Ash wasn't exactly a slouch in Sun and Moon, and if anything, I would say that he very often battled powerful Pokemon and trainers, and usually has shown some pretty impressive feats during it, such as having recurring battles with Tapu Koko, battling against Misty's Mega Gyarados and winning, battling against Mother Beast Lucamine and her Pokemon, and then there's the Ultra Beast during the Ultra Guardians arc. Ash and his friends had to battle these beings and send them back to the wormholes they came from, which is no easy task, as they'd usually be rampaging around the region. At the end of this arc, Ash and his friends also had to battle against Necrozma to save Alola from plunging into darkness. The Alola League is also nothing to scoff at either, for multiple reasons. Ash made it through 151 people during the Battle Royale round, making it to the top 16 at first. Ash also beat Faba pretty handedly in his first round, and honestly, Faba got exactly what he deserved, with already trying to manipulate the battle in his favor by wanting Ash to use one of his more inexperienced Pokemon, only for Ash's Melton to eat his Hypnos Pendulum, which made it so that he couldn't really do anything, winning Ash the first round. Then for Ash's second match, he battled against Hau. This was a controversial one, and honestly it's for ridiculous reasons. But hear me out. We all know that Rowlet fell asleep, but it wasn't knocked out. And we knew this because we didn't usually get the swirly-eyed look we see in a Pokemon once it's KO'd. Nanu made a bad call and did not do his due diligence to make sure that Rowlet was actually knocked out. And of course, Hala knew this and overturned that bad call, as he should have. I feel like the same people who complained about Ash winning this battle would also complain if Ash, first of all, got eliminated in such an unceremonious manner at a league once again, and second of all, if Ash got eliminated due to a bad judgment call, which is much worse. It seems like the fandom really did not hold the proper people accountable in their rush to bash on this battle and Sun and Moon as a whole, and I feel like it's an awful mischaracterization of Hala to say that he favored Ash over his own grandson Hao, when that's not the case at all, and it's very disingenuous. And this isn't any disrespect to Nanu either, as he's human and makes mistakes. That's all I want to say on this matter, but long story short, Ash was able to pull out the win with Rowlet against Hao's Decidueye, which granted him a spot in the semifinals. In the semifinals of the Alola League, Ash faced off against Guzma, who beat him and Pikachu pretty badly the first time they battled. This is also the same guy who brutally beat Lana and her Primarina, and the same guy who also defeated Alima and his Mega Kangaskhan. Alima was actually considered a fan favorite to win the Kalos League and had competed there sometime in the past, so it just speaks to how strong Guzma really is. But despite this, people also want to keep downplaying the Alola League and want to make it seem like it was a total cakewalk for Ash, which is not the case at all, as he had difficulty with Guzma as well. But despite this, he was able to pull off the win and end up in the finals once again. In the finals, Ash faces off against his rival Gladion in a 3v3 match. And this battle is actually underrated simply because it's not the 6v6 slugfest that people were looking for, but it was still a good match that often gets slept on. They both sent out some of their strongest Pokemon at the time, such as Gladion using Silvally, Zoroark, and Midnight Lycanroc. Meanwhile, Ash had Melmetal, Pikachu, and Dusk Lycanroc. The match came pretty close, but Ash pulled out the win by having his own Dusk Lycanroc using counter on Midnight Lycanroc's counter, which is so like Ash to do. This made it Ash's first ever league victory. I remembered first watching this episode and seeing how this long-awaited victory broke the internet. He was even trending on news channels and sports channels, so it was a really big deal at the time. Yet there's people out there who want to downplay it by saying he should have won a different league and that it felt wrong. Granted, I can see where they are coming from, because I will admit he did lose a lot. However, I do think it's a bit disingenuous to brush this league win off, and if anything, I would argue that him winning in Alola made the most sense, since as I've stated before, the region was his second home, and not only that, he became the first ever champion of that region and won its first ever league, so honestly I would say that this win holds a lot more weight than any of the other leagues he could have won prior. Though, despite winning the league, Ash still had 2 more tough battles ahead of him. He and the other league competitors battled against a group of Guzzlord and managed to fend them off. Then he had the exhibition match against Professor Kukui, which is actually a fan favorite battle of the Pokemon anime, often coming in most people's top 5 battles of all time, as it's a 6v6 slugfest with stellar animation and art style, high level strategies and plays, constant switching, and the fact that Ash and his Pokemon got to settle their rivalry with the Royal Mask, who was then revealed as Kukui himself. Ash's Torracat got the long-awaited rematch against Kukui's Incineroar, and it eventually won, which also gave us a look into something that we've never seen before as it evolves, but due to all the strength that it used in the battle against Kukui's Incineroar, Ash's Incineroar was knocked out. However, it was still standing proud by the end of it, which honestly looks pretty cool. Ash and Pikachu also settled their rivalry with Tapu Koko in a spectacular final battle in which Ash and Kukui used their second Z moves. Yeah, you heard that right. Tapu Koko and the other Tapus charged Ash and Kukui's Z rings after their first Z moves, and it gave us one of the best clashes in anime history. Throughout that clash, Ash and Pikachu were remembering their prior experiences in the Alola region and how it's impacted their lives for the better. They've grown so much, and Ash acknowledges that it's due to all the connections and bonds that he's made in the region, and so with all the experiences in mind, he and Pikachu defeat Kukui and Tapu Koko, winning them the exhibition match. Ash not only became champion, but also proved people that he deserved the title by winning in a no-holds-barred 6v6 match. After the Alola League, Ash is at a loss in terms of what to do and where to really go from there. He ends up running into Olivia alongside Kiawe, and she ends up giving Ash some really good advice. The conversation is very important, which I will get into in a little bit. The advice in question that Olivia gives Ash is the following: that it's important to know of the outside world, and that changing your surroundings can broaden your perspectives, and that it all allows you to calmly look back and reconsider the person you've been up until then. Olivia also goes on to say that it was because of Ash's adventures in the Alola region that he was able to understand and learn all of this. And with that important conversation in mind, he has a new goal. He wants to see the rest of the Pokemon world and what it has to offer him in Pikachu, all in his quest to become a Pokemon Master. And while it's a little ambiguous as to what that really means, I would say that this conversation he had with Olivia was a setup for what was to come in Pokemon Journeys, where Ash achieves his biggest accomplishment ever. And with all that being said, that wraps up today's video. I hope you all were able to appreciate this iteration of Ash like I have. I would say that despite everything, and all the love that Sun and Moon Ash has received, that he's actually pretty underrated, whether it be due to the way he looks in the art style, or not being as flashy as he was in prior generations of the anime. Though hopefully as more time goes on, he ends up receiving more love from the fandom, which he really deserves. I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have an amazing day.